The winter storm had arrived earlier than expected. The sky had turned a deep gray, and heavy flakes of snow fell like soft feathers from above, covering everything in a cold white blanket. The wind was sharp and strong, the kind that made even the toughest people wrap their coats tighter. Out on the long, quiet road outside a small Montana town, Ethan Cole guided his horse slowly through the storm. He had gone to check on his cattle, making sure they were safe before the weather grew worse. Ethan was a man who took responsibility seriously. Life on a ranch had taught him to care for every animal, every tool, and every person who depended on him. As he rode, the snow made it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. The wind brushed loudly against his hat, and the cold air bit at his skin. Still, Ethan moved forward with calm patience. Years on the ranch had trained him to stay steady, even when nature turned wild. He had planned to head straight home, sit by the fire, and drink the hot coffee waiting in his kitchen. But fate had a different plan. While passing a bend in the road, something caught his eye. At first, Ethan thought it was just another mound of snow. But as he looked closer, he noticed a small glimmer like metal shining under the snow. He pulled his horse to a stop. Something felt wrong. With a slow breath, he stepped down and walked toward the strange shape. As he brushed the snow away, he saw it clearly: a car, covered almost completely by the storm. The front bumper was buried deep, and the windows were fogged. The car must have skidded off the road earlier, perhaps when the ice was fresh. Ethan's stomach tightened. He knew nobody would survive long out here if they were trapped inside. He tapped on the window softly, hoping someone inside would respond. For a moment, nothing happened. The storm's howl was the only sound around him. But then, he thought he heard a faint movement. With gentle urgency, he tried the door, and to his relief, it opened with a stiff, icy crack. Inside, a woman sat leaning against the seat, her eyes half closed, her face pale from the cold. Her dark hair was damp from melted snow, and her hands trembled lightly. She looked exhausted, like she had been fighting to stay awake for hours. "Ma'am?" Ethan said softly, trying not to startle her. "Can you hear me?" The woman blinked weakly, her voice small and tired. I didn't think anyone would find me." Her words were fragile, and hearing them stirred something deep inside Ethan. The storm was too dangerous for her to stay in the car. He knew she needed warmth, shelter, and care fast. "You're going to be all right," Ethan assured her gently. "I'm going to take you somewhere warm." He wrapped his heavy ranch jacket around her, feeling how cold her body was through the fabric. She tried to stand, but her legs were too weak. Without hesitation, Ethan carefully lifted her into his arms. She was light, and he could feel her trembling from the cold. The wind pushed against them, but he held her steady, speaking softly to keep her awake. "There's a ranch not far from here," he said. "You'll be safe. Just hold on." She nodded faintly, her eyes fluttering. Ethan placed her gently onto his horse, climbing up behind her so he could keep her steady. He wrapped another blanket from his saddlebag around her, holding her close so his own body heat could help warm her. The horse moved slowly through the storm as Ethan guided it with one hand while keeping the woman safe with the other. The journey back felt longer because of the weather, but Ethan didn't let the worry touch his expression. The woman needed calmness, and he offered it without speaking much. She leaned against him for support, her breaths uneven but present. He kept encouraging her softly. "We're almost there. Stay with me." Eventually, the lights of his ranch house appeared like small, warm stars in the snowy night. The sight felt like hope. Ethan urged the horse forward, and soon they reached the large wooden porch covered by snow. He carried her inside carefully, pushing the door open with his shoulder. The warmth of the house wrapped around them immediately. Ethan laid her on the soft couch near the fireplace and quickly added more logs to the flames. The fire crackled to life, spreading heat through the room. He fetched a thick blanket, warm socks, and hot water. The woman watched him with tired eyes, still trying to stay awake. "What's your name?" he asked softly, as he helped her sit up. "Lena," she whispered. "Lena Harper." "I'm Ethan," he said with a reassuring smile. "You're safe now, Lena." She gave a small, grateful nod. He handed her a warm cup of tea, making sure she held it properly. Lena took slow sips, feeling the warmth spread inside her. Her cheeks slowly regained a little color, and her breathing steadied. "Thank you," she murmured. "I didn't know what else to do." The road was empty, and the snow just kept falling. "Cheese. It happens fast out here," Ethan replied gently. "You did the right thing staying in your car. But you shouldn't have been out in this weather alone." Lena looked down, her hands tightening around the cup. There was a sadness in her eyes that Ethan noticed, but he didn't push her for details. Something about her expression told him she carried a heavy story. After she warmed up, Ethan brought her a fresh change of clothes, soft, clean, and comfortable. "There's a room down the hall. You can rest there." Lena hesitated. I don't want to trouble you." "You're not," he replied with simple honesty. "You needed help. That's all." She nodded quietly and followed his directions. Ethan stepped back, giving her privacy, but stayed close enough in case she needed anything. When Lena emerged from the room, her face looked a little less pale, though her eyes still carried exhaustion. She slowly walked back to the couch, and he prepared a simple meal, warm soup and bread. She ate with slow, careful bites, clearly hungry but polite. As she ate, Ethan sat nearby, giving her space but also making sure she felt comfortable. Snow continued to fall heavily outside, hitting the windows with soft taps. The fire filled the room with a cozy glow. "You were traveling alone?" he asked gently, only after she seemed more relaxed. Lena nodded. "Yes. I had to leave where I was." Her voice carried both pain and determination. Ethan sensed she wasn't ready to open up fully, and he respected that. "You don't have to explain anything right now," he said. "Just rest." His calm tone seemed to ease her. Lena looked at him with quiet gratitude. "You saved my life." Ethan shook his head lightly. "I just happened to be there. Anyone would have helped." Lena smiled faintly. Not everyone would have stopped in a storm like that. Ethan didn't argue. He simply checked the fire again, making sure it kept the room warm, then offered her a soft pillow for support. "You should rest," he said. "Your body's been through a lot." Lena leaned back, letting the warmth and safety surround her. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. The storm outside continued its fierce dance. But inside the ranch house, everything felt calm. Ethan stayed nearby, quietly cleaning up and preparing extra blankets in case she got cold again. He glanced at her every few minutes, making sure she was comfortable. As the night grew deeper, Lena slowly drifted into sleep, her breathing steady and peaceful. Ethan watched for a moment and felt relief wash over him. He didn't know who she was or why she had been driving alone in such dangerous weather, but he knew she needed safety. And something inside him felt strangely certain. That meeting her on that snowy road wasn't just luck. It felt like something that was meant to happen. Little did Ethan know, the events that began in the snowstorm were only the beginning of a much deeper story, one that would change his life in ways he never imagined. The next morning arrived slowly, with the snow outside still deep but the storm finally calming down. Soft sunlight found its way through the clouds and fell gently across the ranch. Inside the warm house, Lena woke to the quiet sound of crackling firewood. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Her mind was still foggy from the cold and exhaustion of the night before. Then, she noticed the blanket over her, the gentle warmth, and the peaceful silence. It felt safe. Safer than she had felt in a long time. She sat up slowly, stretching her fingers and curling them around the warm air. Her body was still tired, but the heaviness from the cold was gone. When she looked around, she saw a note placed neatly on the small table beside her. The handwriting was simple and steady. "I'm outside checking the horses. Take your time. Ethan." The small message made her chest feel lighter. It had been months since anyone treated her with such care. She stood up quietly, wrapped the blanket around her shoulders, and walked to the window. The sight outside was peaceful white fields, tall fences, and a few horses walking slowly through the snow-covered yard. It looked like a place far away from her old troubles. Moments later, she heard the front door open. Cold air rushed in for a second before Ethan stepped inside, brushing snow from his jacket. When he saw her awake and standing, he gave a relieved smile. "You're up," he said warmly. "How are you feeling today?" "Better," Lena replied softly. "Much better. Thank you for everything." "You don't have to thank me," Ethan answered. "I'm just glad you're all right." He walked toward the kitchen and began preparing breakfast. The way he moved, steady, calm, sure made Lena feel strangely at ease. She wasn't used to this kind of quiet kindness. She followed him slowly and sat at the table, watching him cook. "You can rest more if you want," Ethan said as he cracked a few eggs into a pan. "I've rested enough," she answered. "And I didn't want to sleep while you were doing all the work." Ethan chuckled lightly. "This is just breakfast, and I don't mind." She watched the steam rise from the pan, breathing in the warm smell. "I haven't had a peaceful morning like this in a long time." Ethan glanced at her gently but didn't ask why. He had seen enough tired eyes in his life to know when someone carried heavy memories. He believed people talked when they were ready. When breakfast was ready, he placed the plate in front of her: simple scrambled eggs, toast, and warm tea. It was ordinary food, but to Lena, it tasted like comfort. She ate slowly, enjoying each bite, while Ethan sat across from her, sipping his coffee. After a long, quiet moment, Lena finally said, "I'm sorry if I caused you any trouble yesterday." Ethan shook his head. "You didn't. Weather like that can hurt anyone. I'm just glad I found you when I did." Lena looked down at her hands, her voice lowering. "I wasn't just traveling. I was leaving something behind." Ethan listened, waiting without pressure. Lena took a deep breath. "I left my old life because I felt alone there. I didn't trust the people I was with anymore. And I was tired of feeling scared." Ethan's expression stayed calm and steady. "You're safe here," he said sincerely. "No one is going to bother you." Lena's eyes softened. She nodded, grateful for his quiet understanding. She didn't give details, yet she wasn't ready. But it felt good that he didn't push her to explain. As the day went on, Lena helped Ethan with small tasks around the house. She folded blankets, washed the dishes, and organized things he had left out the night before. She didn't want to sit around doing nothing. The movement helped her feel more in control. Ethan watched her with a gentle smile. "You don't have to help with the chores," she shrugged lightly. "It keeps my mind busy. And I want to contribute. At least a little." "All right then," he said with a soft chuckle. "If it helps you feel better." Later in the afternoon, the sun peeked through the clouds, giving the land a soft golden glow. Ethan asked if she wanted to step outside to see the ranch. Lena hesitated. The cold still made her nervous after what happened, but she wanted to see more of the place that had saved her. Ethan handed her a warm coat and boots. "No rush. Walk only as much as you feel comfortable." They stepped out into the snow, and Lena inhaled the cold, clean air. The world outside was quiet except for the gentle sounds of horses shifting in the snow. The ranch felt peaceful, like it existed in its own little world, far from noise or trouble. "These are my horses," Ethan said, leading her toward the fence. "They're gentle. Want to pet one?" Lena nodded slowly. One of the horses, a soft brown one, approached them with quiet curiosity. Lena lifted her hand nervously at first, but when the horse pressed its nose against her palm, a small smile formed on her face. "He's warm," she whispered. "Horses can sense emotions," Ethan said softly. "They know when someone needs a gentle moment." Lena kept her hand on the horse's muzzle, feeling calm for the first time in months. It felt almost like the animal understood her pain and wanted to comfort her. They walked further along the fence, watching the horses move peacefully. The snow sparkled under the sun, and the air felt cleaner than anything Lena had breathed in a long time. "You live here alone?" she asked. "Mostly," Ethan replied. "My family visits sometimes, but I run the ranch myself." "It must be peaceful," she said. "It is, but it gets quiet too," he admitted. "Still, I like it. Helps me think. Helps me be myself." Lena nodded, understanding the feeling more than she expected. As they walked back inside to warm up, Lena paused. holding her stomach for a moment. It was a natural, gentle, protective gesture. But Ethan noticed. He didn't say anything then. But the concern in his eyes grew quietly. Inside the house again, Ethan placed more wood in the fireplace. Lena stood near the flames, letting the heat soak into her cold fingers. Ethan watched her carefully, respectfully, without staring but enough to notice the hints she tried to hide. "You all right?" he asked softly. Lena hesitated before answering. Her voice came out quiet. "I'm okay. Just tired." Ethan nodded. "If anything feels wrong, just tell me. I'll help however I can." His genuine kindness made Lena's heart feel heavy. She wanted to tell him the truth, but the words wouldn't come out yet. She wasn't sure how he would react. She was afraid of judgment, afraid of being turned away. As evening approached, Ethan prepared dinner, a simple soup again, warm and comforting. Lena ate slowly, and the room felt peaceful. She sat near the fire after dinner, watching the flames dance. Ethan sat across from her. "You're thinking about something," he said gently. Lena looked at him. She opened her mouth to speak but closed it again. The fear in her eyes was clear. Ethan set his cup down. "You don't have to be scared of me, Lena. Whatever you're carrying, you're not alone here." His voice was steady, warm, steady like the way the land stood strong under the snow. Lena took a slow breath. Her eyes grew slightly watery, but she blinked the tears away before they fell. "There's something I didn't tell you," she finally whispered. "I didn't leave just because of the storm, or because I was lonely." Ethan remained calm, patient. Lena placed a hand on her stomach, this time without trying to hide it. "I'm expecting," she said softly. "And I had no support where I was. I couldn't stay in that place, not with my baby needing safety." Ethan didn't look shocked. He didn't judge. He didn't step back or change his expression. Instead, he nodded gently. "Thank you for trusting me enough to tell me," he said sincerely. Lena's lips trembled with relief. She had expected fear or hesitation. But Ethan's reaction was gentle. She felt a warmth inside her chest that had nothing to do with the fire. "You're safe here," Ethan said again, his voice firm but kind. "You and your child." Lena looked into his eyes and saw something she hadn't felt in a long time, genuine care without expectations. For the rest of the evening, the conversation stayed light. Ethan didn't pressure her into talking more, but his calm presence made everything feel lighter. Lena felt as if she had finally stepped into a place where the world was not against her. As she prepared to sleep, Lena paused at the doorway of the spare room. "Ethan?" she said softly. He turned. "Yes? Thank you. For everything. For not judging me." Ethan smiled warmly. "There's nothing to judge. Everyone deserves help, Lena." She nodded slowly, feeling a peaceful weight settle in her heart. When she lay down under the warm blankets, she felt something she hadn't felt in months: hope. Real hope. The kind that whispered quietly that maybe, just maybe, this place was where she was meant to be. And as Ethan turned off the lights and checked the fire one last time, he couldn't shake the feeling that her arrival on that snowy night was no accident. Something about Lena and the child she carried felt important, as if their paths were meant to cross. Neither of them knew it yet. But the bond that started from a simple act of rescue was slowly growing into something deeper. Something that would shape both of their futures in ways they never expected. The days slowly began to pass, and the storm that once threatened everything faded into nothing more than a memory. The snow outside still covered the land in a soft white blanket, but inside Ethan's ranch house, life felt warm and alive. Lena settled into the quiet routine of the place with surprising ease. The peaceful surroundings made her feel calmer, and Ethan's steady presence made her feel supported in a way she had not felt for a long time. Each morning, she woke up to the gentle sounds of Ethan moving around the kitchen, preparing breakfast, feeding the animals, or adding fresh logs to the fireplace. Sometimes she watched him quietly from the doorway before he noticed her. There was something comforting about the way he worked, how he never rushed, how his movements always carried purpose. One morning, as Lena walked into the kitchen rubbing the sleep from her eyes, she found Ethan pouring hot water into a mug. "You're up early today," he said with a warm smile. I slept well, Lena said softly. Better than I have in months. That's good to hear. He handed her the mug, and Lena held it between her palms, letting the warmth soak in. She looked at him thoughtfully, noticing how the soft morning light made him look even kinder. There was an ease in being around him that surprised her. It felt natural, like she had known him longer than she actually had. After breakfast, Ethan invited her to come outside again. The weather was bright and peaceful, and he said the horses seemed to sense it too. Only if you feel up to it, he said, careful not to pressure her. Lena nodded. I'd like that. They walked slowly across the ranch yard. The snow crunched beneath their boots, and the air was crisp, but not as biting as before. The horses lifted their heads when they saw Ethan, recognizing him immediately. His presence always seemed to calm them. Lena walked up to the brown horse she had met earlier. She gently placed her hand on its neck, and the horse leaned forward, as if remembering her. He likes you, Ethan said softly. Is he always this gentle? Lena asked. Only with people he trusts, Ethan replied. Lena smiled, feeling a small flutter of warmth inside. Trust, something she had lost faith in, was quietly rebuilding itself here. As they stood by the fence, Ethan turned to her. You look stronger these days. I feel stronger, she admitted. Being here has helped me breathe again. Ethan nodded, but he also watched her carefully. He still noticed the way she sometimes touched her stomach, as though making sure everything was okay. He also noticed how she seemed to relax whenever she talked about the baby. Have you thought about what you want to do next? He asked gently, making sure his voice held no pressure. Lena looked down at the snow. I think about it every day, she said quietly. But I don't have all the answers yet. That's all right, Ethan replied. You don't need to decide everything right now. His calm support made her chest feel light. She wasn't used to someone giving her space to figure things out. Later that afternoon, as they returned inside, Lena suddenly felt a light wave of dizziness. She placed a hand on the wall for balance. Ethan immediately noticed. Are you okay? He asked, stepping closer. Lena nodded quickly, trying to brush it off. Just a little dizzy. Maybe I stood up too fast. Ethan didn't look convinced. Sit down, he said gently. I'll get you some water. He helped her to the couch and handed her a glass. Lena took slow sips, trying to steady herself. But Ethan's concern didn't fade. When was the last time you saw a doctor? He asked softly. Lena looked away. It's been a while. When things got difficult, I stopped going. Ethan hesitated for a moment. Would you like me to take you to the clinic in town, just to make sure everything's all right? Lena bit her lip. She didn't want to trouble him, but she also knew she needed to check on the baby. The thought of anything happening scared her more than she admitted. That would be very kind, she said softly. Ethan nodded. Let's go now. He helped her into the truck, making sure she was comfortable, then drove carefully through the snowy roads. Lena watched him from the passenger seat, noticing how focused he was on keeping her safe. She didn't understand why he cared so much, but she was grateful for it. At the clinic, the doctor greeted them warmly. Ethan stayed nearby but gave Lena enough privacy when she needed it. He sat in the waiting area, tapping his thumb slowly against his knee, quietly worried. After the examination, the doctor came out with a gentle smile. Everything looks good, she said. The baby is healthy, and Lena just needs rest and proper care. Ethan let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. Relief washed over him. On the way back to the ranch, Lena glanced at him. Thank you, she said softly, for bringing me, and for caring. You don't have to thank me, Ethan replied. You and your baby matter. Your health matters. His voice was firm but kind, and Lena's heart felt something warm bloom inside her. She turned her gaze toward the window to hide the emotion in her eyes. When they reached the ranch, Ethan helped her out of the truck and guided her inside. He made her sit near the fire while he prepared something warm for her to drink. You don't need to treat me like I'm fragile, Lena said with a small smile. I know, Ethan replied. But taking care of someone doesn't mean they're weak. It just means they matter. Lena looked down at her hands, No one had talked to her like that in a long time. Over the next few days, Ethan became more attentive in small, thoughtful ways. He made sure she ate properly, reminded her to rest, and took on more of the outdoor chores so she wouldn't feel pressured to help. Lena noticed every little thing he did, and each gesture touched her heart more than she expected. Their bond grew naturally soft, quiet, and unforced. Some evenings, they sat near the fire, sharing stories from their lives. Ethan told her about the ranch, about his childhood, about the simple but meaningful life he lived. Lena shared bits of her past too, though she still avoided the painful parts. Ethan never pushed her. One night, as they talked by the fire, Ethan noticed Lena staring into the flames with a thoughtful expression. "What's on your mind?" he asked softly. Lena hesitated, then said, "I don't know if I'm ready to face the world outside this ranch again. It feels safe here. It is safe." Ethan replied, "And you can stay as long as you need." Lena looked at him, her eyes soft. "You're very kind, Ethan. I'm just doing what anyone should do," he said quietly. "Not everyone would," she answered. "I've seen that." Their eyes met for a moment longer than usual. Something warm passed between them, something unspoken, but undeniable. As days turned into weeks, Ethan found himself looking forward to every moment he spent with Lena. He loved hearing her laugh softly at his stories, loved watching her grow more confident, loved the way she talked gently to the baby when she thought no one was listening. One afternoon, Lena noticed Ethan fixing a loose fence post near the horse barn. She walked over and leaned on the fence. "You work so hard," she said, smiling gently. "It's part of ranch life," he said with a laugh. "But seeing you out here makes it better." Lena felt warmth rise in her cheeks. She never expected a compliment to affect her like that. But Ethan's words were always sincere, and sincerity had become rare in her life. As the sun began to set and painted the sky with soft shades of orange and pink, Ethan and Lena walked back to the house together. The peaceful silence between them felt more meaningful than any conversation. Inside, Lena paused near the living room. "Ethan," she said softly. He turned. "Yes? I'm not sure what the future holds," she said, her voice gentle but honest. "But I want you to know, I feel safe here. Safer than I ever felt before." Ethan looked at her with warm, steady eyes. "I'm glad you feel that way." "It's more than that," Lena continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I feel like maybe this is where I'm meant to be for now." Ethan took a slow breath. His heart beat a little faster, but he kept his voice calm. "You can stay as long as you want," he said. "I mean that." Their eyes met again, and in that moment, both of them felt something shift. Something gentle, but strong. A bond, a beginning. Neither of them said more. But the silent understanding grew between them. They didn't rush anything. They didn't name their feelings. They simply let the connection grow naturally, like a seed growing quietly under the snow, waiting for spring. As that night ended, Lena lay in bed feeling hope she hadn't felt in years. Ethan lay awake too, thinking about her and the baby, feeling something in his heart he couldn't explain but didn't want to push away. Both of them sensed that their lives were slowly weaving together, thread by thread, moment by moment, fate working quietly in the background. This wasn't just a rescue anymore. It was the beginning of something that felt like destiny. The final part of the story begins at a moment when everything around him was changing faster than he expected. After going through so many challenges, heartbreaks, and surprises, he finally reached a point where he had to decide how he wanted to shape the rest of his life. He had learned enough lessons to understand that life never gives a straight road. It bends, twists, rises, and falls. And the only way to walk on it is by staying strong inside. But he also knew that this strength did not appear suddenly. It was built piece by piece through every pain, every small victory, every moment of patience, and every moment when he wanted to give up, but still kept going. He woke up early each morning with a fresh mindset. Instead of thinking about the past, he started focusing on what could make his future better. He realized that holding on to old memories, especially painful ones, made his heart heavy. He had spent many nights replaying events he couldn't change, wondering why certain people left, why certain things broke, and why life sometimes did not go the way he planned. But now, he understood that life does not always break you to destroy you. It sometimes breaks you to rebuild you stronger than before. This understanding helped him breathe more freely. Even small things like the morning sunlight coming through the window or the soft sound of birds outside felt different now. Earlier, he never noticed these things because his mind was too crowded, but now he saw them clearly. He felt grateful for everything that still remained with him, his hope, his determination, and the quiet belief that life could still be beautiful. It was not the same beauty as before, but perhaps an even better kind, one that came from wisdom and maturity. As he moved forward, people around him also started noticing the change. His voice sounded calmer, his actions looked more thoughtful, and he carried a kind of quiet confidence that did not need to be shown, it could simply be felt. Some people asked how he managed to recover from everything he faced. He smiled gently and replied that healing is not a one-day process. It comes slowly, the same way a broken bone heals, or a seed grows into a tree. It takes time, care, and patience. And most importantly, it takes courage to keep believing even when nothing seems to work. He also learned that not everyone you lose is a loss. Some people leave your story because their part is finished. Others stay because they are meant to walk with you longer. He stopped chasing people, stopped explaining himself to those who misunderstood him, and stopped expecting others to see his pain the way he felt it. Instead, he focused on becoming a better version of himself. He understood that when you improve your inner world, your outer world slowly begins to follow. During this time, he went back to the things he once enjoyed but had forgotten due to stress and worry. He spent more time outdoors, walked in peaceful places, and sat silently near water, listening to the flow. These small moments gave him clarity. He also picked up old hobbies he once loved, drawing, reading, writing thoughts in a notebook. Each simple activity helped him reconnect with himself. It felt like meeting an old friend, the version of himself he had lost while trying to deal with life's chaos. One evening, while sitting alone, he thought about everything he had learned in this journey. He realized that the strongest people are not the ones who never fall. They are the ones who fall many times but always rise again. He had fallen. He had been hurt. He had cried in silence. But every time he stood up, with a stronger heart. This realization filled him with a peaceful energy. He no longer blamed anyone for what happened. Instead, he silently thanked life for giving him the experiences that shaped him. He also forgave the people who hurt him. Not because they apologized, but because he did not want to carry that weight anymore. He wanted to free himself, and forgiveness was the only door that opened towards peace. It didn't mean he forgot what happened. And it didn't mean he wanted those people back in his life. It simply meant he decided not to let negativity control him any longer. Forgiving others was his gift to himself, not to them. As time passed, new opportunities began to appear slowly, almost quietly. He found new connections, made new friends, and met people who respected him for who he truly was. These new faces did not judge him for his past or expect him to be perfect. They valued his honesty, kindness, and sincerity. Being around such people made him feel safe and understood. For the first time in a long while, he began to feel that life was giving him a second chance to rebuild everything that once collapsed. He started planning his future with a clearer vision. Instead of rushing or forcing things, he moved step by step. He set goals, worked on new projects, and invested his time in meaningful activities. Progress was not always fast, but he stayed consistent. Every small achievement became a reason to feel proud. He celebrated quiet victories, finishing a task, learning something new, improving his mindset, or simply waking up with peace instead of stress. However, he also accepted that life will still have challenges. No matter how strong or positive a person becomes, life will always bring unexpected tests. But the difference now was that he felt ready for them. He no longer feared difficulties. He understood they were part of the journey. Even if a problem appeared, he knew he had the mental strength to face it. This confidence made him feel lighter, stronger, and more stable from within. One day, as he was standing near a window, watching the evening sky turn golden, he smiled gently to himself. He thought about how far he had come from the days when he felt lost and uncertain. It amazed him how something that once felt impossible had now become a reality. He was genuinely healing. Not pretending, not forcing, but truly healing. He realized that the real victory was not winning against others but winning against his own doubts and fears. His story, which began with struggle, was now turning into a journey of rediscovery. He understood that life is not about finding perfection. It is about finding balance. It is not about forgetting the past. It is about learning from it without letting it control the present. And it is not about rushing to the finish line. It is about appreciating every step you take. As the days continued, he kept building himself slowly and steadily. He stayed humble, stayed grateful, and stayed open to whatever the future brought. His heart, once heavy, now felt lighter and more hopeful. His mind, once confused, now felt clear and focused. And his soul, once tired, now felt alive again. In the end, he realized something powerful. Life doesn't always give you what you want, but it always gives you what you need to grow. Every setback he faced became a lesson. Every tear became strength. Every ending created space for a new beginning, and every lonely night taught him how to stand on his own. His story did not end here. It continued with a renewed sense of purpose. He walked forward with confidence, knowing that whatever comes next, he has the heart to face it, the courage to rise again, and the wisdom to choose peace over pain. And that was his true victory, becoming the strongest version of himself without losing his kindness, patience, or hope.